Hey there, okay. Part two of the travel guitars. Sorry you had to put up with that. I really don't. I mean, I ran a computer business and a newspaper. I was stitching videos in a video timeline editor for years. And I don't do this with my YouTube channel or things like that. That means I'm going to have to put editing time into it, and then I'm going to get frustrated and not want to do anything. So that's why I don't do that. Remember, we were talking about travel guitars. I'm going to let you hear them. I'm not going to plug them in acoustically. Acoustic guitars, my favorite amplifier is a Fishman Loudbox Mini, although, I've got a Fender Mustang there that also can digitally try to enhance an acoustic sound. But to me, the Fishman Loudbox Mini does a better job than any acoustic amplifier for a true acoustic sound. A problem you have amplifying an acoustic guitar with a pickup that is inside the guitar is often feedback. You're going to get feedback. Now, there's all kind of ways to fight that, but and then there's, I went through a phase where I thought, well, I have to have, an acoustic electric. Well, no, I don't. I've actually got very good microphones that I can mic up. A microphone, just a regular old microphone. I mean, some of them look like the microphone there. Some of them are skinny, but I've got microphones that I can control a mic'd acoustic guitar better usually than what's in the preamp equalizer active pickup in an acoustic guitar. Some are passive. I showed you the Epiphone, and you can see, that's the guitar strap pin. That's where you plug an amplifier in. And then you just control the volume, the tone, the chorus, the reverb, the bass, the treble, the mid-range at the amp. Or I use an LR Baggs foot pedal that I can go in, configure the presets I want. I can boost the sound, do things like that. But let's just start with this Epiphone since I have it. Okay, Epiphone. A lot of people view Epiphone as the stepchild of Gibson. That's just not true. If you go back and look at the history of Epiphone, Epiphone was around back in the 1800s and really got kicked off at the turn of the 19th century. They started out making banjos. I'm not here to give you a history lesson. What I'm trying to tell you is Epiphone does indeed make replicas, good replicas of Gibson guitars. This Gibson L00 up here, that's a 12 fret L00. It's a very expensive acoustic. Epiphone makes, well, that's a 12 fret. Most L00s are 14 fret. What do I mean by that? When I say 12 fret, this is the 12th fret. It usually always has a marking on it, like a double. You can see the double dots. Sometimes it's right here on the top where the guitars can see it, but normally there's two dots right there. Well, this guitar neck joins the body of the guitar at the 14th fret. 12, 13, 14. So Epiphone also makes some guitars that are exclusive to their self, like the Texan. And this is the Little Tex, which is the travel size equivalent of their big Texan, which the Beatles played, lots of people played. Epiphone exclusively makes the Casino electric guitar, which the Beatles, lots of other people played, on and on. Okay, I'm just going to strum E chords. I'm not even going to check to see if it's in tune, unless it's terrible, and then I'll tell you. Got a great tone. So that's the Epiphone. Okay, this one is around $250 in a lot of places. This is the higher end Luna. Now, I think Luna is probably one of the most underrated of the mass-produced guitars. This one, it's acoustic electric. It's got a preamp, which means it takes a battery. The battery, you just push in on that, and pops out, and you put a 9-volt in there. Of course, that's where the jack goes in. That's the guitar strap end pin. This is Hawaiian koa woods. This is not high pressure laminate. This is Hawaiian koa, a full solid Hawaiian koa. Just a beautiful sound. And notice how I can pull these in. The scale length. The scale length is, this is the bridge. The bridge usually has the end pins or the slots, or a classical guitar, it has where the strings are tied. But the white part here is the saddle. The strings go into the hole, the pins are put over it, and then they cross over and start up the neck over the saddle. The entire bridge holds the saddle. The distance from the saddle to the nut of the guitar, this white part, I define the nut of a guitar as where the headstock, the strings on the headstock, here's the headstock, where the tuners are that adjust the pitch. But the nut is where the strings on the headstock cross over to the neck. And of course, this is the neck, all of this. But this, you see the color difference going from a lighter wood to a dark. The dark is the fingerboard. So that's the nut. The distance from the saddle on the bridge to the nut is the scale length. This one's about 22.5 inches. A big dreadnought, like the one I showed you in the part 1 compared, that's typically around 25 inches. Depends on the brand. It could be 25.5, 24 3/4. So when you have a smaller scale length, the frets are generally closer together, meaning it's easier to stretch to them. Now, some people with short hands love this too. Some people can't stand it. So, it is a personal preference, but what I find is that you're not going to get the projection from a travel guitar acoustically like you're going to get from most big dreadnoughts. You're just not going to get it. Let me just, I'll show you. That's a beautiful sound. However, you heard that's beautiful, it's gorgeous. I did that with my finger. I didn't do it with a pick. Let's do it with a pick. I want to show you the difference. I don't use a pick much at all. I'm a finger style guitarist. Okay, here we go without a pick. Now I'm going to use a pick. So it gets louder right off the bat. There are ways they brace and craft these travel size to get as much projection as possible. Now, this is a 1978 Ovation. It's, as you can see, it's got a lot of my friends signed it. It's a guitar I played back in the 70s. In the 80s, I taught my kids to play on this. Listen to the sound of this strummed. And it's like the Epiphone too. This is one of the first Ovations. It simply had a passive pickup. No battery. You plug the cable in. You had to control it with the amp or a foot pedal if you had it. But you saw, or heard, I should say, how loud it is. It's got a lot of projection. Okay, so we've looked at the Epiphone. We've looked at the Alta Vista, the expensive Hawaiian Koa Luna guitar. And yeah, when you have guitars, you're going to ding them against each other sometimes, but you always try to grab them lightly where you don't make a mess. This one's actually made out of bamboo. See, the Luna is known for their beautiful laser etched designs, but this is not electric at all, but it's still got great sound. It's easy to play. E with the pick. Without the pick. So, you know, there is a noticeable difference. All right, let's keep moving along. This is another Luna in the Safari series. And I'm not going to mention anybody's name, but I'm actually loaning this to a very good friend of mine from school years ago. His 18-year-old daughter wants to learn to play guitar. And he offered to buy this. And I was like, no, see how she does. And he was like, no, man, let me pay. I said, this is what I actually told him. And no, I don't do this for everybody. I can't. But I do give away guitars sometimes, and I do let people, it just depends on the circumstance. But, you know, it just does. But this is a dear friend of mine. And I thought the fact that she's 18 years old and wants to learn guitar, that normally means they made that decision on their own. So what I told him was, I said, I tell you what, you keep this for up to a year. If she can play me a song all the way through using a G, a D, and a C chord, it's hers. No, I don't do that for everybody, but that, you know, the reason I do this is to help people that want to actually learn guitar. I don't teach lessons. I don't do that. My YouTube guitar channel is about when people get stuck in lessons. Somebody's told them that's the only way they can make a G, and I show them there's other ways to make a G and when you might want to use the other ways. I give little tidbits out. But anyway, listen to this one. All right, this is first of all without a pick. Beautiful tone. With a pick. So there's your other Luna. We've covered the three Lunas. We've covered the Epiphone. Now let's move to the Little Martin. Now, the Little Martins come in all types of woods. This is high pressure laminate, but which means it's going to endure severities and weather better than most tone woods. But this is well made high pressure laminate. I've had a Koa version of the Little Martin. I've had Sitka top, rosewood for back and sides. I mean, it's a Martin, and Martin has a distinct sound. And although my big dreadnought Martins are going to be a lot louder, even my orchestra model, just with the finger, or the thumb, I should say. It's still a Martin sound. Okay, with a pick. It's just a beautiful guitar. And these are what we call couch guitars. And they're especially useful for somebody like me who has osteoarthritis in the shoulder. And unless I'm using a strap to hook up, I have a hard time with my arm over a big dreadnought. it hurts after a while. So this is very comfortable to play. So now let's go to the Taylor guitar. This is a baby Taylor. This is my wife's. My wife loves the Taylor. She is a Taylor snob. A good guitarist friend of mine had a good back and forth about Martins and Taylors and the different sound and who's older and who's this. My wife doesn't give a rip about that. She just likes the sound of a Taylor. And she will mess with me. Now, I do have to tell you, she did tell me the other day, now I do like that little Martin. She goes, but it's not a Taylor. So my wife is the ultimate Taylor snob. This does have a preamp, acoustic electrics. It has a built-in tuner. You can see it flashing there. If I hit a string, let's turn that off. Anyway, all right, with my thumb, E chord, with a pick. Okay, so there you have it. That's several choices from, I'm not going to call any of these low-end guitars. The 189, 199 Luna, the 250 Epiphone, the 350 to 400 Luna Alta Vista higher end, the $500 Taylor and Martin. They're all great guitars to start with. And I have a Luna that has, you may have seen it before. It's actually hanging when you walk in our front door. You know, we've got a upstairs, a downstairs, and the big hallway going down, it's hanging in the center. It's a Luna that has the peace sign in the sound hole. And then it's got peace laser etched in like 80 different languages. So I know that's not the reason you buy a guitar, but I made my point in the part one video is these are good guitars. They don't take up a lot of space. They're easy to travel with. They're easy to get a hold of. I'm a firm believer there's always a debate. I want my guitar to be available. There are people, oh no, my guitars go in a case. Well, mine do too when I'm loading them up in a car going somewhere. And I'm not about to start that debate. You want to keep your guitars in a case all the time. It's your guitar. It's your guitar journey. Do what you want. This room has multiple hygrometers that show the humidity. And as you can see, the humidity right now is in the 50s. I like to keep my guitar studio room in that. I have a humidifier I run during the winter when heat and you need humidity. And I have that big dehumidifier back there. Well, you can't see this. There it is. Right there. And I empty that one, it's a 2-gallon bucket during the summer almost every day. So I keep my guitars in a controlled environment so they don't dry out. The wood doesn't crack, because it will crack under all different kinds of conditions. So, you don't want to leave a guitar, an acoustic tone wood guitar, not even an electric either, overnight in a car where it's going to be over 100 degrees. It's not good for the guitar. So anyway, I realize, this may sound judgmental. I just see it as a fact of life. That Ovation over there I showed you, the 1978, well, the first guitar I bought, that I bought with my own money, was in 1973. It was an Epiphone. I believe it was an FT150. I bought it from Simmons Music in Five Points West. And I had a not so great guitar before, but I feel so blessed that my mother bought me that not so great guitar from Western Auto at Five Points West. And I cut grass for 3 summers to buy that Epiphone. And oh, the difference in how it played was night and day. The Epiphone was just fantastic. But I actually see people, part of it makes me cringe, but it's none of my business. It's absolutely none of my business. I will see people that will buy their child a starter guitar that's over $2,000, and I'm just like, oh God, that's your business. Totally your business. I can't help how it makes me cringe. That's just my past life experiences. But at any rate, I think, everybody can't afford a guitar. You may think $200 is ridiculous. Actually, for the price of guitars, a lot of the guitars I showed you, some of them are around $3,000 to $4,000, and you can buy name brand guitars and get up around $5,000 to $10,000. It's like any hobby. There's higher end things, lower end things. It's like when I was a kid, and what brand of glove you bought. Did you buy a Rollins, a Wilson? I was a catcher. I wanted an Akona, I believe that's what it was called, catcher's mitt. But at any rate, these are guitars that if you're learning, whether you're young or you're old, I realize there's a whole acoustic electric thing. Today I'm talking about acoustics. That this rages a huge debate over what to start out on. Then there's nylon strings versus steel strings, electric versus acoustic. This is about acoustic guitars that are affordable for starting guitars. So you have a blessed guitar journey. And if you got questions, feel free to ask them. I do not teach lessons. I don't sell guitars except my own guitars. I sell the heck out of guitars to be able to buy another one. And most of the time, I generally can't stand playing the wait in a parking lot for somebody you don't know to sell a guitar. I usually sell to people I know, or if I do venture down that, the last guitar I sold to somebody I didn't know, I met them at the Moody Police Department free exchange parking lot for everybody's safety. So that's, I buy and trade guitars to get another guitar. I'm kind of like my wife. If I'm going to buy a guitar, then I got to get rid of 1 or 2 or 3 or something. I had a big collection, and I whittled it down once I got my hand condition straightened out. So I hope this helps. And like I tell everybody, I always end, happy picking.